Welcome to the HR Book Club, the series where we meet the authors behind the very best HR books. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Sommers, and we're going to be discussing his book, Coaching at Work. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hi, Leon. I'm okay, thanks. Yeah. How are
Good,
you?
good. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Um, so, obviously, we want to talk about coaching at work, but before we do, maybe it makes sense for you to introduce yourself.
For sure. Yeah. So I'm Matt Summers. I'm involved in the coaching world. I guess I work at the point where kind of executive one-on-one coaching meets coaching skills training. I like to work these days with leaders on a one-on-one basis, helping them develop their coaching skills, become a leader as coach. I think that the most interesting application of coaching is when it's part and parcel of sort of leadership and management style within the organization and not just hired in temporarily from outside. And I've been doing that for quite a long time now. I came across coaching in the mid 1990s and I've been in practice myself since the late 90s, early 2000s. So yeah, it's quite a ride it's been.
Fantastic. Yeah. So this, I mean, I was recommended to get you on board, and particularly around coaching at work, the book. So perhaps you can tell us a bit more about what the book is about and who it's aimed at.
Yeah, so I wrote the book. I mean, it was a little while ago now. The book's over 10 years old. And when I first wrote it, I really, I think, wanted to have that audience I've just described in mind. There was a lot of coaching literature already out there, of course. And much of that was aimed at people, I suppose, aspiring to be professional coaches, wanted to do it for a living. I wanted something that was absolutely rooted in the world of work, hence the coaching at work of the title, so that people didn't have to translate concepts from sport or the helping therapies or whatever and figure out for themselves how to apply that to the world of work. I'd already been doing that for quite a while, so I thought I had perhaps something useful to say, having already done that translation, Leon,
Okay.
if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really sort of the motivation to get that out is to make sure that it was more about for people, anyone really within the workplace.
Well, that's right. You see, I
Yeah.
have this sort of my core belief, and I tend to talk about this whenever I get a forum to do so. Is this idea that if you're a leader of people, you are already their coach. I mean, whether you like it or not. I think it comes with the territory. I've done exercises in training rooms where I've asked people to produce a list of what they'd look for in a great leader and then a list of what they'd look for in a great coach. And the two lists are more often than not, nigh on identical. So I've had this idea now for a long time that when we've got to get results through other people as a leader or manager rather than just through ourselves, then we are already a coach. And you can do that well, you can do that badly, but it seems that you can't sort of avoid that. So the book, yeah, part of the intent in writing the book, and I mean, I don't know if I was successful in accomplishing that, but I wanted to write with those people in mind.
Okay.
You know how there's a lot of books for you might see them described as finance for non-financial people. Well, I suppose
Yeah.
in some ways mine was an attempt at coaching for non-coaching people, maybe, people who weren't sort of naturally disposed to doing that. Some advice and some guidance for them. I think that it's almost a Western disease, isn't it, that you often get into a position of managing people, of leading people, probably through your expertise in other areas. And we're often leave people, I think, a little bit foundering when it comes to the people side of being a leader.
Yeah.
And coaching isn't the only answer to that. It's not the only way you might solve that problem, but it can take you a long way. And yeah, it was those thoughts I had in mind, I think, when I first sat down to write the book.
Okay. And how did you find the writing process? Was it easy to get those thoughts out, or was it a bit more challenging? What were your thoughts about the writing process as a whole?
Yeah, I found it challenging. I suppose I'd had, I think probably like a lot of people who write business stuff, they write initially from the point of view of what they understand this business topic to be, but where I wasn't a trained writer, I had no real experience apart from I'd done some small articles and things like that, and had,
Yeah.
as it happened, written a much shorter book beforehand. But I'm not sure any of that sort of qualified me to be a professional writer, and I I'm still slightly uneasy with being described as an author, because I don't think I am. I once wrote a few things. So for me, the writing process was quite challenging, and the way that I went about it, I had to be quite sort of methodical, I suppose. And I remember the contract from the publishers was for 80,000 words, which seemed like an awful lot when I first started. And so the only way I could really go about that was to chunk that right down. That lent itself to sort of 4 sections of 20,000 words each. And then I thought, well, okay, well, if I've got a 2,000 word intro and then another kind of 5,000 word summary or whatever it was, just break it down. And then I ended up with almost a daily writing schedule, which was about 400 or 500 words a day, I think, in the end, once I'd had this framework in place. Subsequently, other people have told me that's probably quite a good idea to structure the writing process in that way. Yeah. But for me, ignorance was bliss and necessity was the mother of invention. It was the only way really I could think of to make that manageable.
Yeah, it's always when you have such a big target or something, to break it down and take those steps is normally a good thing to do, I suppose. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So so you've obviously done some other sort of publications and things as well. So but my normal question is there plans to write another book? But you've had some other books, have you?
Yeah, I mean, Coaching at Work that we're talking about this morning is by far the biggest one. But I did write some books for Hodder and Stoughton for a couple of their kind of management series. In fact, the first one I wrote, which was called Coaching in a Week. So there's quite an interesting story behind that one. The In a Week series is something that the publishers Hodder and Stoughton have had in place for some time. And I had many of their titles. I think I had Successful Project Management in a Week and Time Management in a Week and these other things. And I remember looking at the ones that I had on my desk and sort of flipping to the list of other available titles in the back and realizing that they didn't have one at this point in time on coaching. Oh, well, I've been doing this a while. I've got some things to say about the nature of coaching. I might like to write a book for this series on coaching. And again, ignorance being bliss, having no idea that there were things like literary agents and a way you were supposed to go about doing this. I had no idea. And what I did was to phone Hodder and Stoughton main reception. And this poor lady sort of answered the phone, and I said, oh, I want to write a book on coaching. Can you put me through to the right person? And bless her, with great sort of patience, because I must get calls like this all day long. She found a commissioning editor for me to speak to. And this guy, again, with great patience, kind of said, okay, well, what you need to do is produce a sample chapter and then a synopsis of what might follow. Send that in to us. And if we like it, we'll see where we'll go from there. Well, fortunately, they did like it. That book was published, I think, first edition. That was about 2002. And it was really that process, Leon, I suppose, that had me. I had a lot more I wanted to say. And obviously, when you write for a series, you have to write in quite a structured way as well. And I thought, well, I'd really like to say all I want to say about coaching and just do that in a format that suits me. And so I approached a different publisher with Coaching at Work in mind. And again, very fortunately, they liked what they saw with that. And that was great because I had then great freedom, to produce these sort of 80,000 words in whatever way I saw best. So it was a nice evolution, from doing something that I suppose was more straightforward because there was a framework to plug into, to then having that kind of free reign to do whatever I wanted.
Interesting. Okay. So we always end our HR book clubs with a recommendation of one book. We sometimes get a list of 2 or 3. Let's go for one. So I know it's challenging. So if there was one book that you could recommend, which book would it be?
Well, I'm gonna fly out on a limb here because I just started reading one. I don't know if holding this up to the camera is useful.
Change the culture, change the game.
Yeah. So this is by Roger Connors and Tom Smith. They're American. And I'm only about halfway through it. So I almost hesitate to recommend a book that I haven't quite completed, but it's kind of grabbed me from the first few pages, actually. I only started reading it yesterday and I'm maybe about halfway through. Makes a huge amount of sense. And I think that, culture change, and one of the reasons I'm reading it is, I think we're living through a culture change in the world of HR and work, post-COVID, return to normal, the working from home debate, all of that, to me are cultural issues. And I think it chimes really well with coaching as well. Coaching is about helping people manage the conversation that's going on in their own head. Coaching is about helping them manage the conversations that are going on in their business. So I'm really drawn to some of the ideas in here. It's a very good read.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Matt, for taking the time to talk us through coaching at work. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and best wishes with everything and with your business going forwards.
Yeah, you too, Leon. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.